One of the most creative directors of the past 30 years who's continually refined and brought us a unique vision of the world is Wes Anderson. I've greatly enjoyed every movie he has directed, and I'm always excited to see what he brings to the screen next. While some viewers have a particular way of viewing Anderson's work, I think there's even more there than he's ordinarily given credit for. The aspect of his filmmaking most people seem to bring up is his visual style, which does stand out and have an immense appeal. The worlds seen in his movies are a wonder, with him working closely with his production team to make them pop off the screen and leave a memorable impression. Although one criticism I'll always push back against is this idea that he just makes the same movie over and over again, and that everything he's done, especially over the last number of years, looks the same. Yes, he has certain camera angles and places in the frame he likes to put his actors, but he still tries to make each film distinct and specific to that world. For example, you have the camping grounds and creaky floorboards of the house in Moonrise Kingdom, the magnificent hotel in multiple decades in the Grand Budapest Hotel, and the futuristic Japan in Isle of Dogs. Do any of those images I showed you look remotely the same? I actually love that I have no idea what type of location Anderson will focus on next, and it makes it a pleasing surprise when I find out where he's going to take us. If there's a connecting visual palette to his work, there's often a 1970s feel to some, although not all of his movies. He was born in 1969, so it makes sense he would have a certain nostalgic attachment to that decade. Moonrise Kingdom especially feels like an ode to his childhood years, even though it's set in 1965. It captured that feeling of spending the summer exploring or just reading and playing board games inside, which Anderson must have surely done. The Royal Tenenbaums also feels very 70s with its use of colors and cinematography, despite taking place in the early 2000s. However, his work can also recall other periods. The Grand Budapest Hotel uses its 1930s Eastern European setting to add a specific flavor to the world and also to comment on the rise of fascism during that period. Anderson's movies have such a classic old-timey feel to them, it almost comes across as a shock when we see modern technology, like an iPod in the Darjeeling Limited. His use of music also plays a pivotal role in giving his movies a ton of charm, with him finding the right songs to put over the scenes, and often in unique ways we might not think. The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou uses a lot of David Bowie songs, but an interesting twist, they are sung and translated by actor Seu Jorge into Portuguese. Bowie himself even praised these renditions of his songs. And for the Royal Tenenbaums, the songs perfectly reflect the state of the characters, like Christmas Time is Here from Margot, or Mean Julio down by the schoolyard when Roll is having fun with his grandsons. If there is a common storytelling element in Anderson's movies, he does seem to have an affinity for stories where characters try to pull off an elaborate plan of some kind. This goes all the way back to his first feature film, Bottle Rocket, which is about a couple friends who attempt to make some major heists. Of course, it does not quite go as planned, and part of the humor comes from how things go disastrously wrong. Other examples of this include Roll trying desperately to become part of his estranged family again in the Royal Tenenbaums, Mr. Fox stealing the farmer's food in Fantastic Mr. Fox, and Sam and Susie running off together to try and make a life for themselves while everyone else in the island searches for them in Moonrise Kingdom. Much like Anderson seems to plan out every little detail about his movies now to implement the shots, his characters would like to do the same. Another aspect I've noticed about his movies is how they're so often about his protagonist seeking connection of some kind. Royal Tenenbaums' arc comes from his wanting to be with his family again, initially for selfish reasons, but then grows and comes to realize through this reconnection that maybe he was not the best father and could be better. Also the three brothers in the Darjeeling Limited and how they try to patch up the differences, Steve Zissou's son coming into his life and trying to make that connection, and Atari, the young Japanese boy searching for his dog who's been forcibly taken away from him. These films present this idea of how people, and even dogs and woodland animals, so often crave company and wanting to be with each other, whether it's a family member or a best friend. While I keep bringing up Wes Anderson, it's also important to remember his collaborators, with him often working with a writing partner more than once. The most well-known of his co-writers is his longtime friend and frequent cast member Owen Wilson. They worked together on the screenplays for Bottle Rocket, Rushmore, and the Royal Tenenbaums, with their sensibilities working perfectly in sync. Although surprisingly, those are the only 3 movies Wilson has written. It has been explained that as his acting career took off and they started working on their own individual projects, they just have not gotten the opportunity to sit down and write something together. Well, they've long talked about wanting to write a Western, so maybe that's something we could see in the future. Since then, Wes Anderson's most frequent collaborator has been Roman Coppola, with their sensibilities also gelling extremely well, and he's also worked alongside Noah Baumbach and Jason Schwartzman in devising the stories for his movies. He has a singular voice, but it's also an example of how he seems to work well with others and bring them into his process. This seems to apply to his actors as well, with him working with a lot of the same people more than once and getting some terrific performances out of them. Bill Murray's who he has worked with the most, starting with his scene-stealing supporting role in Rushmore. Although if I listed every actor he has directed multiple times, I'll be here all day. But some of the standout performances he has gotten, whether they've been in only one of his movies or several, include Gene Hackman, Luke Wilson, and Gwyneth Paltrow in The Royal Tenenbaums, Willem Dafoe in The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, Ray Fiennes in The Grand Budapest Hotel, Jared Gilman, Cara Hayward, and Edward Norton in Moonrise Kingdom, George Clooney in Fantastic Mr. Fox, and most recently Michael Cera in The Phoenician Scheme. Another key element of his movies is the humor, which can vary from dry and deadpan to more physical comedy. The dialogue has such a specific rhythm to it that works, and comes so much from the characters' personalities and how they view the world. Some of the best and funniest moments usually come from the interactions between these characters and the way their personalities can occasionally clash. A major reason why I think the Darjeeling Limited works so well is how funny the three brothers are as they try to make this trip through India. They can go from just talking about their love lives to getting into a skirmish that gets them kicked off the train. Even as the story taps into the sadness felt by the brothers, there's a casual breeziness about the movie I love. He has that ability of going from dark comedy to a more lighthearted quip with ease. Anderson's love for crafting elaborate worlds also extends to his interest in stop-motion animation. Fantastic Mr. Fox was his first animated feature, and he and the animation team, led by the late Mark Gustafson, did a terrific job depicting the English countryside through the sets, and the animals have a lot of personality to them, especially the way their fur moves. There's so much creativity put into the underground homes of these animals and how they dig from one place to the next. Anderson's sensibilities also prove to be well suited to Roald Dahl's storytelling and sense of humor. Isle of Dogs similarly used stop-motion animation to great effect, going to darker territory with these dogs thrown onto an island. I think that movie might be the closest modern equivalent we have to the animated films of Martin Rosen, the director of Watership Down and The Plague Dogs, with Anderson even citing the latter as an influence. He also brought on Henry Selick to animate the colorful and imaginative sea creatures in Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. Stop-motion was used for a chase sequence in the Grand Budapest Hotel, and some of the funniest moments, including a terrific payoff in Asteroid City, involved the art form. Adding on to this, his films really feel like Wes Anderson telling us about his interests, which brings such a genuine joy to them, like The French Dispatch serving as a tribute to The New Yorker and other magazines that would feature a variety of short stories and essays within their pages. Or The Life Aquatic paying homage to the undersea documentaries made by Jacques-Yves Cousteau. If you look at the early development of his films, they seem to originate from Anderson and his writing collaborators wanting to explore a certain topic, like dogs or prep school or pre-World War II Europe, and then they pile on more ideas to expand on the story and characters, eventually morphing into the finished screenplay that makes its way on screen. I love how packed of ideas his movies are, and yet despite several characters and running jokes and extra details he throws into the setting, his movies never become overwhelming. Instead, there's a delightful turn around every corner. Now, if you're wondering what my favorite Wes Anderson movie is, it's definitely The Royal Tenenbaums, which also happened to be the first one I watched, with my appreciation only growing over time. It does such a wonderful job of telling the story of this family and everyone who makes their way through this house. It does so well in introducing us to them through a narration read by Alec Baldwin and showing how these young wonderkins become troubled adults. It's a hilarious movie, but it also one with a ton of heartbreak as we see the troubles that affect the Tenenbaums, particularly how they feel about their patriarch. All these characters have such personality to them, which is even highlighted through the specific way they dress, and the music choices are also brilliant. If you've never seen one of Anderson's films before, this is honestly a fitting starting point. I also have to mention his short film, The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar, a terrific adaptation of Roald Dahl's short story. Staying extremely faithful to the original text, it takes an inspired route in how it translates the material to the screen, and particularly how it does the scene changes. I think it also stands as one of the best things he's ever directed. As you can see, Wes Anderson is constantly experimenting, trying new things, and coming up with new characters or impressively adapting pre-existing ones. There are few filmmakers out there like him, and I feel even pinning him down to a specific style does not do his work justice. His movies have such a clever sense of humor and dry wit, while also displaying plenty of poignancy as his characters navigate their troubled lives. If Wes Anderson is directing a new movie, you can be sure I'll be watching it to see what he has devised. See you next time.